Hey everybody, this is Anthony with VR Game Rankings. Welcome to a Monday edition of the Daily Vlog. It is episode 55. It is Monday, December 18th, and we are ready for a brand new week of daily vlog episodes coming to you every single day of this week. Hopefully we will have a lot of news stories to cover, but even if we don't, we'll get into all kinds of interesting topics. So we're always going to have something to discuss here. But the good news is today on Monday, we do have some news stories to work with. So we do have some interesting stuff to dive into. So why don't we just cut the chase and get right into it. Let's just get into these big stories and see how they play themselves out. Okay, so number one, the biggest story that we have on the docket today, Skyrim VR is coming to PC VR platforms in 2018, confirmed. Okay, so what is the deal here? Is this really a major news story? Not really, but you know what? We're going to go ahead and call it a major news story anyway. So what happened here is on Bethesda's website, on one of their various website pages, they are talking about Skyrim VR coming to the PlayStation VR on November 17th. So obviously this web page that we're talking about here was published prior to November 17th because it's talking about the PlayStation VR release of Skyrim as something happening in the future. So this obviously was published prior to the release of Skyrim VR, but somehow this information is just kind of being discovered now, or maybe this was out there and nobody really paid attention to it. So anyway, here's the bottom line. The bottom line is on this web page where they're discussing Skyrim VR coming to PlayStation VR, at the very end they say additional platform support will follow in 2018. And so this is actual confirmation that Skyrim VR is coming to the Oculus Rift, coming to the HTC Vive in 2018. Now, technically, maybe not to the Oculus Rift due to lawsuit situations with ZeniMax and that type of thing, but obviously Skyrim and Fallout 4 and Doom VFR are playable on the Oculus Rift, so we would assume Skyrim VR would have the same kind of playability, if nothing else. Okay, so is this major news? Like, is this anything that we should really be shocked by? Of course not. We should not be shocked by this because here's the bottom line. The bottom line is we know that Bethesda likes money. We know that. We also know that Bethesda can sell a shit ton of copies of Skyrim VR on Steam, and if it did come to the Oculus store, they could sell a shit ton of copies there, and they could also sell quite a few copies on the Windows Store for the Windows mixed reality platforms. So there's a lot of money that's being left on the table with them having PlayStation VR exclusivity right now. Now, of course, a company like Sony, they see a game like Skyrim VR and they know how powerful the idea of being in a Skyrim game and being completely surrounded with VR, how powerful that can be. And they knew that this would be a wonderful product that they can have as a showpiece product for the PlayStation VR for the holiday season, and it's working out incredibly well for them. Now, Sony, when they looked at this, they had to make a decision. Okay, how long is our exclusivity window going to be on Skyrim VR? Are we going to opt for a 90-day exclusivity window? Are we going to opt for a 6-month exclusivity window? Are we going to opt for a 1-year exclusivity window? And I would have to imagine that each of these windows has a dollar amount attached to it. So if Sony decided to go with the 90-day window, it wouldn't cost them nearly as much as, say, a 1-year exclusivity window could cost them. So Sony had to make the decision there how they were going to do that. Now, here's the thing. We all know that Resident Evil 7 has at least a 1-year exclusivity because we have not seen Resident Evil 7 on PC VR platforms. Resident Evil 7 launched January 24th. Now, come this January 24th, 2018, if a couple of days later we hear an announcement Resident Evil 7 is coming February 10th or whatever it happens to be, then we know, okay, Sony had this 1-year exclusivity. The 1-year exclusivity has now expired, and here comes Resident Evil 7 to the PC VR platform. So I think based on that, we're probably expecting this to be a 1-year window. And so Skyrim VR for the HTC Vive and for the Oculus Rift, this is probably going to be a late November 2018 type of a deal. So it's still incredibly far away. However, I think we also have to consider the possibility, what if this is only a 90-day window? We don't know for sure. Anything can possibly happen. If somehow this is only a 90-day window, then we could get Skyrim VR on the Oculus Rift and on the HTC Vive as early as mid-February, mid to late February of this year. And there's a possibility we could have an announcement about this, say in late January or very early February. Now, it's also a possibility that during this 90-day window, there can be no announcements of any kind. So maybe the announcement comes a little bit later. Maybe Skyrim VR comes out early in March. You know, there's lots of possibilities here. Now, that's if it's a 90-day window. That's really the best case scenario, and it's probably unlikely. It's probably very unlikely, but anything can happen, okay? Now, a 6-month exclusivity window, that would mean that Skyrim VR would be coming to the PC VR platforms sometime in mid to late May, or possibly very early in June, once again, if during that exclusivity window you can't even make an announcement. Because likely what a company would like to do, they'd like to make the announcement, have maybe a 2 or 3 week lead up period where they can release some new trailers and kind of generate buzz again, so that could play into it as well. So those are kind of the exclusivity windows that we're probably looking at here. I mean, I would say the smart money is on a 1-year exclusivity deal. I would believe that Sony probably went to Bethesda and say, hey, we'll take a 1-year exclusivity on Skyrim VR. We'll give you this much money. We'll do all this co-marketing with you. We will have Skyrim bundles, you know, blah, 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 blah. And so I really feel like it's probably a 1-year exclusivity window, which that does suck. Believe me, I'd love to try this on my Vive, on a Rift, or anything. I'd like to play it on there. I've been playing it on PCVR. I've been playing it on PSVR, and it has worked pretty damn well, all things considered. But still, I would love to see that higher fidelity tracking and really the room scale aspect of it as well. So yeah, Skyrim VR will be coming sometime in 2018. Okay, the next story I have is in relation to Nvidia. Now, this is kind of actually an old news story, but I really wasn't paying attention to this. I didn't read this article until just recently, and I did think that there was some interesting information here. So what am I talking about? Okay, Road to VR recently had an article on their website where they were talking about the future of VR and kind of the role that Nvidia would play in the future of VR. Now, this actually was a guest article that was written by Dr. Morgan McGuire, who is a scientist working with the AR and VR research team at Nvidia. And there's a couple of quotes in this article that I wanted to mention, and then maybe get into a quick little discussion about Nvidia and basically the future of VR and AR. Okay, so there were 2 quotes that really jumped out to me. Okay, here's the first one. Our vision is that VR will be the interface to all computing. It will replace cell phone displays, computer monitors, keyboards, televisions, remotes, and automobile dashboards. To keep terminology simple, we use VR as shorthand for supporting all virtual experiences, whether or not you can also see the real world through the display. Okay, so what they're saying here, they're not getting caught up in the VR AR thing. They're just going to say, look, we're just going to call this VR, but basically you'll have different levels of how much of the real world you want to let in or how much of the real world you want to block, which is something I've talked about for a long time. But the thing that I really like here is they say it will replace cell phone displays, computer monitors, keyboards, televisions, remotes, even automobile dashboards. And this is something that I've been arguing about, and I've said this for a while now. I truly believe this. Now, this might come off as a ridiculous statement, but I truly believe that 20 years from now, you will go to the average person's home and you will not see a TV anywhere. You will not see a TV hanging on any wall. There will be no TVs. There will be no computer monitors. Why? Because no one will have any need for them. The way I see it, 20 years from now, a television like that will be basically the exact equivalent of a picture tube television, a cathode ray picture tube television that you would have in a modern day house right now. I'm talking about your old school square TV, the big box thing. Okay, we still see these TVs occasionally. We go to a thrift store, we see these TVs. We go to grandma's house, maybe she still has one of these TVs in a back room. These TVs still exist. You go to some lower income areas, they might not have an up-to-date HDTV. They might still be using one of these old busted cathode ray tubes, big gigantic monster console TV. They might have one of these in their house, but for the most part, they don't really exist anymore in our modern day society. You go everywhere, everybody's got flat screens pretty much everywhere. That's just the way it is now. And I believe 20 years from now, TVs, I'm looking at a monitor right now. And 20 years from now, I don't believe I'm going to be looking at a monitor, okay? Because I just don't think there's going to be any need for it. And the reason why is, why would you have a TV in a fixed, specific location when you don't need to? When you can put a TV anywhere at any time and make it any size that you want. And you can make it disappear and you can make it reappear. Why would you need to have a physical TV anywhere? It just wouldn't make any logical sense. So that's why I believe the television market as we know it is going to be non-existent 20 years from now. Of course, there will be something that will replace it, and that is where AR and VR comes in. Now, I know a lot of people will say, nah, man, I don't believe it. We're still going to have TVs. You're crazy. Nobody wants to wear these big-ass goggles on. Well, they're not going to be big-ass goggles. They're going to be crystal clear. They're going to look like regular sunglasses. They're not going to look like some big outrageous thing, and we're still going to have TV coming at us in any way that we want, anywhere that we want. It could follow us around. We could be watching a football game. We have to go make a sandwich in the kitchen. Well, we walk to the kitchen where we're continuing to watch the football game everywhere you go. And then I've had this other argument that people will say. They'll say, well, what about a barbecue? You know, I mean, you go to somebody's barbecue, you want to watch the game. Everybody wants to watch the game. What about a big fight, like a big pay-per-view fight? You know, everybody wants to look at a shared screen. They don't want to be all in their little private virtual realities. Well, here's my feeling about that. You're going to go to someone's house. Let's say they have the big fight on, right? You're going to go to someone's house, and basically you're just going to say, yeah, what signal are you guys on? Oh, we're on 85 hertz, or, you know, whatever. I'm just making something up, right? And then they just make a little adjustment to their glasses that they're wearing. Bam, now they're on 85 hertz. So now on that giant wall over there, they're seeing the same image that everybody else is seeing on that giant wall over there. And if we take it to the barbecue analogy, okay, so now you're in the backyard, you're at a barbecue, and guess what? You look up at the sky, and there is a gigantic NFL football game that's taken place on an IMAX size screen that is just in the freaking sky. And again, you just ask people, yeah, what frequency are you guys tuned in, or whatever they're going to call it. Bam, you tune into it. Now your glasses are locked on. Your headset, your little frame that you're wearing is locked on what everybody else is locked on, so you get to see that big football game taking place in the sky if you want to glance up and look at it. If you don't want to look at it, you don't see it, you know, that type of thing. I truly believe 20 years from now, this is going to be the case. So I am with Nvidia on this as far as we're concerned. Okay, here's the other quote they have. The other quote, we're inventing new headset technology that will replace modern VR's bulky headsets with thin glasses driven by lasers and holograms. They'll be as widespread as tablets, phones, and laptops, and even easier to operate. They'll switch between VR, AR, MR modes instantly, and they'll be powered by new GPUs and graphics software that will be almost unrecognizably different from today's technology. Okay, so yeah, this is what Nvidia is saying. Look, it's not going to be these bulky headsets. That's going to go. They're going to be thin glasses, and they're going to use lasers, they're going to use holograms. Now, really what Nvidia is talking about here is they're talking similar to like Magic Leap and other AR companies, where it's basically light fields. The idea is, can we shoot light into the human eye in such a way that it basically mimics what we're getting from real reality in terms of the light hitting our eyes and the light being processed and going to our brain and that whole type of thing. And so that's what Magic Leap is trying to do. They're trying to shoot real light into your eyes. That's supposedly why Magic Leap is so incredible. And obviously all these other companies are doing the same exact thing. Nvidia, of course, is working on this. They have special teams that are working on this. Is this anything surprising? You know, is it surprising that Nvidia is going to get into this game? No, it would be surprising if they weren't going to get into this game. Everybody is looking at this. I'm sure AMD has teams that are working on this. Everybody has to be working on this, because if you're not working on it, you're going to get left behind. If nothing else, it's a defensive measure. You got to do this just in case. Just in case it goes this way, you got to be ready. And Nvidia, of course, they're talking about automobile dashboards as well. And Nvidia is already working in that market. They're working with like BMW and Audi and all kinds of companies, like completely redesigning your automobile experience in terms of what you're going to see on your dashboard and all that kind of thing. And they're working on that. And you know what? Other automobile companies like Ford and companies that really you don't think of as technology companies, they have to work on this. They have to do this. You have to do it. You cannot be left behind. You have to get in the game. You have to invest billions of dollars. You have to figure this thing out, because you do not want to be left on the sidelines. No one wants to be left on the sidelines. So everybody is getting involved in this. Now, the reality of this, though, is everything that I'm talking about here, remember, I'm talking about 20 years, okay? 20 years is a long time away. And so this NVIDIA, the technology that NVIDIA is talking about with holograms and lasers and by thin glasses, this is not something we're going to see in the next 5 years. I think we kind of know this. We kind of recognize this. I mean, there's not going to be that big of a leap that's just instantly going to happen. You go back, you look at the most game-changing technology that we've ever had that has come to us. You look at the televisions of way back in the 1930s. Do you know that the televisions that they had way back then, they were these big, gigantic ass televisions, right? But the actual viewable image was this tiny little square in the middle. It was a tiny little square that was black and white, and that's how television started. Think about cell phones. Remember cell phones in the 90s? Do you remember you'd see these people, they would have these like backpack things that they would be carrying that would have their cell phone. It was a big, gigantic contraption, probably caused cancer. I mean, who knows what kind of wireless signals were coming into this freaking thing with this big battery pack and the cell phones that they had in cars and stuff back then. And now look at the cell phones that we have now. So, I mean, normally what we tend to see is we see these first things come out and they're bulky, they're large, they're kind of, out of control a little bit. They don't look that great. They're kind of, not the best thing in the world, right? But then it keeps getting smaller. It keeps getting sleeker. It keeps getting better. And that's what we're going to have in the VR AR market. I mean, it's basically just this is how it's going to happen. And so we need to understand that. But I believe it's probably at least 10 years before we're going to see any of this NVIDIA stuff. So it's nothing to worry about right now. But companies like Magic Leap, and companies like Apple, I guarantee you that Apple and Magic Leap and other companies along these lines, they're paying attention to this. NVIDIA is a sleeping giant. They're not even sleeping. They're wide awake. Nvidia is a wide awake giant. Have you guys seen Nvidia's stock over the last several years? I would have killed to have had major stock in Nvidia over the last couple of years, because their stock has just performed like a champion. I mean, just absolutely incredible. And there's a lot of people that know that Nvidia will have a lot to say in this department. Okay, the next story I got is Accounting Plus. Now, Accounting Plus does come out tomorrow, but we've heard some early information about Accounting Plus because it is available in the land of Oz right now. Yeah, in Australia. The one good news for Australians is, although they get absolutely screwed when it comes to video game prices and the prices of video game hardware, I really feel bad for the Australians when it comes to that. I mean, sometimes they're paying like triple what we pay for a game or for hardware, just because, I mean, I don't know, what is it? Why does it cost so much? I mean, I know obviously it's on the other side of the world, and to ship it there is probably a real pain in the ass, but I still don't understand why it costs so much. Maybe it's all kinds of import fees and duties and stuff like that. But anyway, there have been some people that have got their hands on Accounting Plus, and I read one guy's impression of it. This guy is on the PSVR subreddit, and the news here is that Accounting Plus runs somewhere between 1 hour and an hour and a half, okay? And it's interesting because in this thread where this guy's talking about this, he's saying, look, it lasted somewhere between an hour and a half. I don't know the exact time, but it was somewhere around there. Some people in that thread were like, what? This is only an hour? But what they don't realize is the regular version of Accounting, the free version of Accounting that Steam VR players and Oculus players are able to play, is maybe like 23 minutes or 24 minutes, you know, not more than 25 minutes for that entire experience. But we're talking about this being an hour to an hour and a half. That is at least 3 times what the regular version of Accounting is. Now, I will say, I will be the first person to say that I am actually surprised by this. I really thought this was going to kind of be more of a cash grab kind of a situation. I thought maybe there would be, you know, 15 to 20 minutes of additional content that would kind of be added on, but it would basically be the regular Accounting that we all got with just some extra scenes and just some extra little stuff to kind of justify this, I believe, $12 price that it's going for. But Justin Rowland wasn't lying. I mean, there is way more than double the content here. It appears like there's at least triple the content, because I'm telling you, the regular Accounting runs about 25 minutes. So if this lasts an hour and 15 minutes, which it kind of sounds like it does, that is triple the time. So that isn't too bad for Accounting Plus. So might actually be worth getting your hands on Accounting Plus if you are a PSVR gamer. All right, some other news in the PSVR world, Skyrim VR. I was just talking about Skyrim VR. The physical copy, a physical copy of Skyrim VR is now priced at $40 at GameStop, $39.99. So if you're one of these people that are taking advantage of this incredible deal that is available right now, where you can get a PlayStation VR for $199, a Gran Turismo bundle, gets you the PlayStation VR, it gets you a camera, gets you a copy of Gran Turismo. Well, you can run over to GameStop and grab yourself a copy of Skyrim VR for only $40. That is a hell of a deal for a very new game that is still incredibly powerful. Now, is there a downside to this news story? Like, is it unfortunate that it is being sold for only $40 now? We're not even out of the holiday season yet. I don't know. I don't know what to think about this. The question is this a temporary price, or is this the new price of Skyrim VR? Because if this is a new price for GameStop, it could signify that they got a shit ton of Skyrim VR copies, sold a lot of them, but still have a ton of them left over, and they're needing to do this price adjustment to try to make it work. That could be somewhat of a negative sign that Skyrim had tremendous hype right at the beginning, but that hype kind of fell off a little bit. That could be a possibility. Or this could be a temporary sale, a temporary price adjustment, and it could be back up at a higher price very soon. We don't know. We don't know what the story is. And right now, as far as I can see, this is only on GameStop. So I don't know that we have other major retailers that are matching this deal yet. I actually did not check Amazon. I probably should have checked it before doing this story. But yeah, it is kind of interesting that it is only $40. But hey, it's a great opportunity for anybody that is jumping on the PSVR bandwagon to go ahead and grab easily one of the best VR games of 2017. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't think anybody would argue with that. Skyrim VR, $40 at GameStop. Okay, the last story I have for today is Rockstar has told Upload VR that they are going to be broadening the requirements for LA Noire in the coming weeks. Okay, so we don't have a lot of information really on this story, but basically what it boils down to is when LA Noire was first launched, the specifications, the requirements were on the very high side. And what we've heard from this game is you really do have to have a pretty powerful rig to get this game to run properly. Now, if you are able to get it to run properly, lots of people are ranting and raving about this game, and they're really blown away by what Rockstar has delivered. I personally have not been able to get this to work myself. I've been able to get into the menu. I even got to this point where I was at a desk and there was inverse kinematics. You know, I saw my arms and I was able to open up some drawers and I was able to look at some stuff, but I couldn't get farther. I couldn't select whatever needed to be selected to like move forward. I haven't completely given up on the game. I'll try to do it again, but basically, mostly from what I've heard, you really got to have like a 1080 Ti to try to run this thing. I don't have a 1080 Ti, so that's kind of why I'm not putting a lot of effort in getting this thing to work. But the good news is that it appears Rockstar does have a team of people that is working on LA Noire to try to maybe get it to work with some lower spec platforms. And also, of course, we had that story on Friday, Rockstar hates AMD, right? I mean, I'm kind of joking with that. I don't literally believe that Rockstar hates AMD. But what they could do also is they could have these engineers kind of working, trying to figure out, okay, how can we get this running on something that is purely AMD CPU and GPU combination? Because right now, supposedly that does not work at all. So they do have a team that is kind of working on this. That's good news. The coming weeks, I mean, who knows how long it will be, but hopefully eventually this situation will be solved, and then maybe also official Oculus Rift support could come as well, because I don't really know, like, what reason does Rockstar or Take-Two Interactive, what reason do they have? Do they have a beef with Oculus? I don't know of any beef that they have, you know, so I would think this would eventually come to the Oculus Rift as well. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. I did have some more Fallout thoughts that I wanted to get into, but you know what? I'll save that for tomorrow, and I have some other topics as well, and we'll just go ahead and save that tomorrow. We have hit close to the 28-minute mark, so I'm going to go ahead and call this episode 55. This, of course, is Monday, December 18th, and we are ready and ready to go for a new week of VR. Hopefully a lot of exciting stuff to talk about this week, and we'll obviously get into it tomorrow on Tuesday, December 19th. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Monday. See you guys. Take it easy. Later.